Hi, my name is Hanna Stotland. I'm an admissions consultant and I specialize in educational crisis management. So most of my students have been suspended, expelled, sent to rehab, arrested, etc., either in high school or college, and I help them to move on from that. So I got into this field because it started coming to me. I flunked out of high school in Chicago. I have a GED. I had the highest test scores and lowest grades in my class. I had straight Fs my last 3 semesters of high school. So I didn't think I was college material, and at my parents' urging, I got a GED and a job, and I worked for a couple of years living at my parents' house. When I finally wanted to go to college, I had no idea what four-year schools might be persuaded to take me. And the answer was some, but certainly not the ones that I'd been hoping for when I was functioning in high school. So I went off to a small women's college, which is the place that gave me a chance. I had tried to transfer after doing well there for 1 year. I was rejected everywhere I applied as a transfer. And then when I applied the third year in a row after my sophomore year, after getting straight A's at my women's college, I got into Harvard, Stanford, and Penn. So off I went to Harvard as a transfer. I was 22, and I got a job in the admissions office giving tours. And there's a spot in the tour script where you say, and this is what brought me to Harvard. And I'd say I got straight Fs my last 3 semesters of high school, I have a GED, etc., and this wasn't what a lot of families were expecting to hear. So typically what would happen is after every tour, some family would take me aside and say, you have to talk to my nephew. He just got out of rehab and he wants to go to college. Can you help us? And so I started helping them. And I stayed at Harvard for law school, and I had a 6-year legal career in Chicago, but I continued to help the families that came to me. And that was a sideline since 1999. And now and for several years, I have been solely an educational consultant and specializing in working with the families who have hit some kind of wall. For the most part, if you get high school discipline or a criminal record and you're applying to college, whether as a freshman or a transfer, there's going to be a box you have to check on the application. Have you ever been disciplined, including but not limited to expulsion, suspension, probation, etc.? If the answer is yes, you need to say yes. You can't lie on that application. And then you're going to have a space where you have to explain. Now, it's not the end of the world as far as your education is concerned if you have to check that box and explain, but it's a whole lot better if you don't have to. All right, if you have to say yes and, we can work with it, but don't call me if you can avoid getting into trouble in the first place. If you have to check that box and explain, you can make up some of the damage, but you should expect to get very different results than you were expecting just based on your academic performance and your test scores and your activities. So if previously you were thinking, oh, these are my reach, match, and likely schools, probably if you have to check the box, it's going to be more like reach, match, likely over here. So schools that might have been your likelies to begin with may be reaches now if you're having to check that box. So when you go off to college, your life is yours and your body is yours, but you can choose to think about, how do I want to look after myself? There's nobody on earth besides you and your mom who thinks your safety is the most important thing on earth. All right, just you. So do not rely on the idea that other people or your friends at college or even your oldest friends are going to look after you the way you would look after you. So think hard about that before you decide not to keep your wits about you, and before you decide to put yourself in a position with drugs or alcohol where essentially you don't have your own good judgment about what's safe for you. If you're going to college outside of California, remember that you're not in California, even if you're surrounded by Californians. And I see this pretty often with students who go to Tulane or Emory or Rice or Vanderbilt, places that don't really feel like they're in the Deep South. You have international students, students from all around the country. If you get caught breaking the drug laws, you are in Georgia. There is no exception for, well, I'm at Emory and we're just, there's a lot of people from New York who don't think this is a big deal. You're in Georgia as far as the law is concerned. And if you are doing things like crossing state lines with drugs or sharing drugs with your friends, aka trafficking, understand that that can be held against you the way it would anybody else in that state. So those boxes that you have to check about whether you've been in trouble in the past, you're not home free once you get into a college. If you want to transfer, they're probably going to ask again. If you want to go to grad school, they're probably going to ask again. If you want to get a job, they may ask again. Certainly, if you ever want to do something that requires a security clearance, like work for a defense contractor, they're going to ask again, and you're going to need to disclose again and explain again. So if you can avoid getting in that position in the first place, that's the smarter move.